Hello, Mr. O'Connor. How are you?
Doing very well. How are you?
I am doing very well myself, thank you.
That's good. How's
You know
things
Walt
been?
Bayless? You know Walt Bayless?
Comet, right? Yeah.
White Label Sweet.
White Label Suite or Comet. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
they rebranded to Comet, but then they went back to White Label Suite or something
No,
like that.
you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
You are 100%. I think they are now branded as Comet. I think you are right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good
Yeah.
friend of mine, and we just had a long chat. He's an amazing guy, really good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he in New Zealand or is he in Australia?
No,
No, he's Australian. Yeah.
Australia. He's down to the Gold Coast now.
Oh, that's right. He moved. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was in Melbourne. Now he's down to
Yeah.
the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. We've been friends probably about 10 years, and
Really?
just a good guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because yeah, I mean I know him. I met him before White Label Suite was a thing, and I met him during his initial Comet thing.
Yes.
And I was like a LinkedIn guy, right?
Ah,
And he was, it was mostly Johan kind of pulling the strings that in terms of like bringing people into their webinars or whatever. And I remember getting dropped into a webinar to talk about LinkedIn, and Walt was there doing his presentation. I thought to myself, like, Walt is a great speaker, you know, he's a great communicator. Very, 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 very strong in that area is what I took away. And then, I saw them just blow up, right? Like they just kind of like went crazy. And I think he was responsible for probably 90% of that, or at least it appears as though he was. So yeah.
well, the what became White Label Suite, now Comet Suite or whatever, that was software he had built long before High
Right.
Level.
Yeah.
And I knew him in that space, and it's funny. We were together at an event in the first week of March of 2020, as COVID was just coming out.
Yeah.
This was the last event before all the lockdowns hit. Um, and literally, like his flight home, he was almost afraid he wasn't going to be able to get home because they stopped flying flights, and so that very week,
Right.
and so that was before White Label Suites, and he was going through some transition, and he and I had a dinner that night, and then just a short time later, he just exploded with he just hit it out of the park, and he introduced me to Johan. I met Johan through Walt, and now Johan and I are good friends too. And yeah, just those are good guys. When they came out for Level Up in October, it was both their birthdays were the week before,
Right.
and so I took them out for barbecue. I said, when you come, I'm going to take you and your team out for barbecue, and then Band ended up joining us and a whole bunch of Extendly people, but we had the best time. We all went out for a great dinner together. It was such a really, really good time. A lot of
Nice.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they ended up getting like some cool cars and went for a drive and stuff like that as
They
well,
did.
right? Yeah.
They did at the end. They did. They sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
looked really fun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're good guys. They're good guys.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, I love the idea. Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, I I want to hear more about. We don't have to do it now, but I do. I want to hear more about what you're saying about LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn guy too.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. Did you happen to see? I posted a couple videos in the Extendly group. I think you're a member of the Extendly group, right?
I'm not actually. Yeah.
Hmm. All right, I'll share these videos with you because I thought you were. I thought I tagged you, or maybe I tagged
Okay.
you on my private line. I posted a couple of videos on my Facebook feed this past week of doing some prospecting that I thought were really, really cool videos. So I thought you
Okay.
might enjoy
Yeah.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
In addition to, did you watch all those videos I did with Extendly?
No, I just finished watching the webinar, the main webinar, which is
Yeah,
a quick
yeah,
win webinar. And then
yeah.
I just watched the Loom. Um, I mean, I would definitely want to watch more, but yeah, I mean, I didn't want to skim it, I wanted to give it the respect it deserved and watch it in its entirety. So I just sat through it and just watched it just then. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you go to so much effort to put it together, to have someone just go, yeah, I skimmed it, and you're like, it wasn't meant to be an executive summary. You're supposed to actually listen to it all, So yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Well, good. Um, I certainly want to talk about these things, but as long as we're sitting here chatting, is it okay if we just take a moment to get to know each other a little bit more and maybe talk a little bit about more what some of our bigger goals are, both of us?
Yeah.
Because maybe this is a good first step towards aligning towards that and make this not just a one-time thing, but something with a long-term benefit. Because I know this, if you and I do something that benefits the two of us, I know we both want to serve the same audience, so it's going to have an exponential benefit for that audience.
Sure, of course.
That makes sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the last line you typed really kind of really made me, I really took notice of that when you said, you slipped in there. The benefit for me would be similar to what you did with Extendly and bundle it with a snapshot, etc. I know Growthable as a support company.
Yeah.
And the unlimited onboardings company.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know you did snapshots. You do snapshots?
Well, we don't, but I was looking for an excuse to jump on the bandwagon because, I don't know, like I'm in two minds, right? Do you know why I'm in two minds? Because it's a small percentage, but there's a percentage enough to make me bothered by it, which is, do I keep pushing back on the way I want the world to be, or do I just accept it for what it is, right? Because a lot of people will have a conversation with me after speaking to Bayant and Matt, and they'll come in and they'll be like, we want to go with you. And I'll be like, great. And then a couple of weeks later, they're like, I chose Extendly. And I'll be like, okay, so you're out. You're with Extendly. Like, yeah, I wanted the snapshots. I wanted the shortcut, right? And I'm like, okay, right. And like we both sort of talked about like the value that there's probably a perceived value than there is a real value behind snapshots, in my opinion. They don't make a huge impact in this time frame that you think it's going to. Like they think they're going to install it like an app on their phone and boom, everything's going to work. But it converts. So do you push against it or do you actually use what works? Right. So they convert. I don't have the thing that converts. Get the thing that converts is kind of my mentality. I don't want to be a me too, but I also do want to be a me too because I'm missing out. So,
well, I don't look at it as being a me too. You're there to serve the needs of the folks that are out there.
Yeah.
And if that is one of the needs, and look, if you see what they launched today, and to totally transparent here, I'm not with them anymore, but I do talk to Bayant, and we're still friends.
Yeah.
And also to be totally transparent, I'll tell you that I don't ever foresee being a business partner with him again. I mean, I see he might promote some of my things and stuff like that, but I'm just candidly, he wasn't a good partner.
Right.
You know, and so, and I say that to you so you know that the things that we talk about will be in confidence. I'll keep them in confidence. All right.
Yes, of course.
And to know that, I'm looking to align myself with people that I align with, that my values are the same, and so forth, and whatnot. So that's why I want you to know that, we could speak in confidence.
Yeah.
And I would ask the same of you. I will tell you some things also that just to be in confidence. But they announced something today, and I didn't even know about this till I saw his announcement today. And I think they're doing a great job. I think they're taking the next step of aligning their support with their snapshot. And I think it's brilliant.
Right.
In fact, they're rebranding, I think they call it Support OS, like operating system. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that doesn't make you a me too, but it makes a lot of sense to have a product that your support is built around, not just built around, I can help you anything high level. Because the one thing I do believe about their snapshot, and I have called it what I think is the best snapshot out there. And I think one of the reasons why is because they're doing so much to keep it up to date.
Right.
most snapshots are built and never revisited again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but as fast as GHL is changing things, those things are obsolete the minute they're released.
Yeah.
You have to keep them up to date. So I will tell you that, they've got a team of people doing that, just keeping the thing up to date, which, but you've got a company, so I'm sure you're prepared to, if you're going to do it, I'm sure you're going to do it right also. Just, so I think you're right. I think it's a key component. I don't think it's me too. I think it might be becoming the ticket, to get in the front door,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah. It's just one of those things where I was like, I think I see the world through a lens which holds me back a little bit on that front, because I'm a true software person. My whole career has been in software. I've always worked for software companies. And I saw snapshots through probably a lens of like a tech guy rather than like a sort of person of the world, right? And through the eyes of the customer who wants one, which is, my customer, right? And it's creating a bias in myself, which is working against me and my company, I think, right? That's me trying to be as self-aware as I possibly can be. You know what I mean?
Nice. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, and what we know about these agencies is we know it's the 80-20 rule, at least, right? We know that many of them, I think you and I have had this conversation. I know I've had this conversation with others this week, but GHL is attracting a lot of people, but they're attracting a lot of business opportunity people, not necessarily real agencies.
Yeah.
And these people, they need more than just the software. They need the software set up for them, which is what the snapshot does in some respect, right? And then they need the package to be able to sell their clients, and because they're never going to do it, they're not going to do it themselves.
Mm.
And they're either going to go out there and and they're not going to be able to use it with all the freebies. They're going to sign up with an affiliate that gives them a ton of snapshots. But you know what that is? That's just bright, shiny objects. That's stuff that isn't going to be functional. It's not going to get them where they need to be. And they're just bonus hunting at that point. May I tell you about what my vision has always been?
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
This was my first book in the space, called The Back-End Blueprint, which the copyright's 2011, and I probably started writing it in 2008. And then it sat on my hard drive because I never thought it was good enough to release. And I still look at it and don't think I did that good of a job. But the bottom line is this: even way back in those days, see, I was in the corporate world for nearly 3 decades, like you were in software.
Yeah.
I was in different industries. I was always a head sales guy.
Yeah.
And I always leveraged computers and technology to sell more stuff. And I mean, talking about my first job in sales, I graduated college in 1986. All right. And so I got a Macintosh computer. I doubled the RAM to a full megabyte, 1 megabyte of RAM. I had a hard drive on my desk this big. It was 20 megabytes. All right. I used a CRM called ACT, A-C-T. I used an Excel spreadsheet and a pencil and paper. And that was marketing automation back in 1986, right?
Yeah. Did ACT used to have an exclamation mark at the end of it?
It sure did.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's remember that.
It was a company called Symantec. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right. So they were still around. Maybe they still are.
Yeah.
Now in those days, my first job was with the Samsonite luggage company. You have Samsonite luggage down there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I sold to department stores, and the guy that was, training me taught me how to use spreadsheets and how to link spreadsheets to take inventories, compare them to a model order to generate an order for department stores. So I was doing this back in 1986. I love to write macros for Excel. I even created an automated system for salespeople based on spreadsheets and macros, and I called it Salesforce. Unfortunately, I didn't know a thing about domains back then. Or I could have had the domain Salesforce, but
Yeah. So
you know, so I missed out on that one. But the point of the matter is, I've always used CRMs. I've always used technology to make more sales. And so the premise behind this book was that businesses were leaving a lot of money on the table because they weren't automating processes. And that when I wrote this book, only big companies could afford that type of stuff. My first client that I built something for was a division of 3M. They wrote me a $35,000 check,
Yeah.
just to get started, right?
Steve, just
And
to interrupt you for 1 second.
yeah,
What you're telling me is like really interesting. Are you sure you don't want to go on Facebook now and have a conversation with me in my group, or would you like to save that for another time?
you want to do it now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, let me see if I can get
We'll
this
just
working.
we just start it over, and
Yeah,
you just serve up the softball, and I'll tell the story.
I got it. Hang on. Just got to get your surname correct. B-A.
Steve Rosenbaum. But if I've been too long-winded with my story, just cut me off.
No. It's very
Or
fascinating.
mute me.
I love
Just mute
it's
me.
so interesting.
Just blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so we're gonna go live in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Steve.
Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Um, we were just chatting, but you were giving me some really interesting. Here we go. Just got to click OK on that. You were just giving me some really interesting um, tidbits and anecdotes about your background. So I'm just going to go back to when you were in sales after you graduated from college. Tell us about you had a MacBook and you upgraded the RAM.
Oh no, not a MacBook, not a
Oh,
MacBook.
Macintosh. That's right.
We're talking about the original Macintosh Plus. I mean, we're talking about that thing that was like like this big and sat on your desk.
Yeah.
It was it was a 5-inch black and white screen, right? I mean, that was tiny. Yeah, oh, yeah. So well, the point, Ryan, is that even way back then, and this was a long time ago, as you could tell from all the gray hair, right? That's when I got my first job in sales in the mid 80s, I was the guy that I worked with taught me how to use computers to sell better, to make better. And way back then I learned the power of the data and the numbers and what computers could do. And so even way back then, what I was saying to you was I started working with a CRM called ACT, and I think you remember it, ACT with an exclamation point, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so I had my Mac Plus, I had the ACT CRM, an Excel spreadsheet, and still needed pencil and paper. I mean, you still couldn't do everything on a computer, right?
Yeah.
And and in those days, I was working for the Samsonite luggage company. And what I would do with Excel spreadsheets is I would link 3 of them together. And I would, in Chicago, I would go around to a chain of department stores like Marshall Fields, and they'd have maybe 20 locations. And I would have to take an inventory of all the luggage, each line of luggage, each model, and plug it in the spreadsheet. And then I linked it by a macro to an identical spreadsheet that had a model order based upon it. And then a third linked spreadsheet that had formulas that generated a purchase order. So I would literally write the orders for the buyer of the department stores. Even the department stores didn't have the computerized models they have now. And they loved me at the department store because I'd walk in, I did all their job for them and said, here's what you need. And I'd give them a spreadsheet of each store, each style, each SKU. and they love that. And because of that, I learned the power early of the computers, of the data, and leveraging that technology to make sales easy. And I made a whole career out of that, Ryan. I got hired and promoted from place to place to place, all different industries. It didn't matter what industry I was in. They all needed the same thing. And I always got them quick sales by using the data to get that low-hanging fruit. Most of the time, that was going back to past customers and just asking them to buy again, or asking them to buy more. Going back to a past customer and say, look, you're buying these items, but you're missing these 5 best sellers. Why don't we just add them? How hard is that, right?
Yeah.
And we would double and triple sales all the time. First, not by acquiring new customers. We did that too. But the easiest and fastest sales, the computer would tell us exactly the data. We always say, the fortunes of the follow-up. I say the dollars are in the data. And that's what I've always leveraged. So that's how I built my career in doing that. And that's why I started to tell you that this book came out. This is my first book called The Back-End Blueprint, way back in 2011. And I probably wrote it in 2008. It sat on my hard drive for 3 years because I didn't think it was good enough to bring out. But most of the stuff I talk about today, what I call my leak-proof funnel system, what has evolved into flawless follow-up, which is, my proprietary process for converting leads into customers and customers into repeat customers, so we maximize revenue per customer. I used to have to do that all by hand for bigger companies that would pay me a lot of money. Now the beauty with high level is we could create these snapshots and we could replicate that and scale it. And that's why we're so fortunate to be, living what we're living in the times that we're living with the tools that we have.
Yeah. That's awesome. You remind me, like the years that you're talking about, like, so you've authored a book. How many books have you published?
Well, that's the only full book that I've written.
Okay, right. Yeah.
I was featured in a chapter of this book called So What Do You Do? I tell a story called The Perfect Sales Storm, which is another sales story. I love to tell sales stories.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've created dozens and dozens and dozens of courses.
Yeah.
I think I've got about 60,000 customers in 155 different countries from the different courses that I've done.
That's crazy. Favorite, like, so I was just thinking back to one of my most influential books when I was in sales, right? I mean, I'm still in sales, but connected to an ownership role or whatever. But chief salesperson is kind of my role, right? And most influential book for me. Do you remember there was a book called Predictable Revenue by the guys that did the Salesforce sales machine?
Absolutely.
That was such a great book.
Absolutely.
And I think it was like the advent of, when can't remember the guy's name now. The Salesforce guy, Benioff, right? Like the team that he chose, right, to bring subscription revenue model teams to the software world, right? I think was unprecedented at the time, almost. Well, I feel like it was, but you probably have more knowledge in it than I do. But like the way that book described how to divide what the division of labor should look like in a sales team, inbound, outbound, qualification rep versus closing rep, blah, 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 blah. None of that stuff was getting done at all in any business that I ever saw until people started adopting more and more subscription-based products. And they're like, oh, this operational expense, not capital expense, right? Anyway, I remember being there for the shift of, instead of people paying like 6 or 7 figures for software and then walking away, they were paying by the month. And so the whole kind of MRR thing became a relevant thing.
And it's, and it really is so important in all businesses and not just software businesses. I give you another example. And by the way, that also illustrates another very important point, Ryan. So I'm glad you brought it up, and it's a great book to illustrate it. But the importance of processes and systems in businesses, and that's what they're missing. That's what many of them are missing. And any software is just a tool. You have to have the systems in place. You have to have the processes in place. And that's the important thing. But the subscription model is an important thing. And especially these days, there's here in the States, there's we're an aging population here in the States, and there are a lot of business owners that that want to exit. They want to sell their businesses,
Right.
and they're having a lot of trouble. They're having a lot of trouble, and the reason they're having a lot of trouble is because they are their business. They don't have the systems and the processes in place. They have to be there every day to run the business. And without them, there's no business. And so there's nothing to sell because they are the business, So, that's why it's so important what you're talking about. But also, I think about that as a community, as I'm hoping and thinking that people watching us right now are people that are using high level agencies, or maybe you're using a white label version and don't even know it or whatever. Let's just say marketing automation, right? Let's just say
Yeah.
marketing automation, that you're automating things in your businesses, these processes, and systematizing them or systemizing them, whichever word you prefer. But for that to happen. And one of my clients, I can give you a perfect example, is a cigar manufacturer. He's a cigar manufacturer. And he, when I first met him, he had a very small list of only about 650 past customers on his list. And I look and when I basically audited them, I found that 2/3 of them had only bought one cigar. They'd never returned. They never returned and bought more cigars. And so what we did was we put processes in place to make sure that never happened again. So today, his list isn't 650, it's 25,000. We've grown that list. You got to do that part two, pardon me. But now it's flipped. 2/3 of his customers are repeat buyers. Many of them will buy 3, 4, 5 times in a year. And his average order has gone up because of it. And what that does to not only the dollar volume of that business, but when he does go to sell his business, when he does go to exit, the multiplier that he will get because he's got predictable revenue. Each and every month, he knows he's going to sell a certain amount minimum. That's the floor. The floor is that,
Yeah.
and that makes his business worth so much more. And all of us doing this, serving these businesses, that's the value we bring to them. It's not just the software. It's the fact that we're going to help these people really take their business to the next level, not just figuratively, but literally, and give them an opportunity to get a lot more value for their business and exit their business if that's what they want to do. That's the power that we have with the tools that we have. But most importantly, we have to know the processes, and that's where I come into play.
Yeah. Would you say that when you were running sales teams and all that sort of stuff, would you also take control of marketing, or would you work with whoever was running marketing, or would you change marketing to fit what you wanted to achieve? Like, I was just thinking about these leadership roles in sales. It's like, in my experience, I've come in and try to do something as a CRO or a growth guy or whatever. And it's like, if marketing's not with you, they're against you, right? Like, you got to get them to do what you got to do. What do you think about that comment or that question?
It's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful question, because most marketers think the sales guys don't know how to sell.
Right.
And most sales guys think the marketing people are getting them bad leads,
Right. Yeah.
So, so there's this, right?
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful question. Peter Drucker, he was,
Of course.
okay.
Yeah. Every textbook I ever read on marketing. It's like, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you remember what he said the purpose of marketing was?
I don't remember. Go on.
He says the purpose of marketing is to make sales superfluous.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Good marketing is going to bring people that are sales ready. That's what it means.
Yeah.
The marketing is going to, and first of all, I teach a very important thing in Flawless Follow that most people overlook, and it's filtering first, or you call it segmenting. Okay, I like alliteration, flawless follow-up, filter first, right? So I just, but when you meet somebody, most people have got this thing in their mind. Well, we have to touch them 12 times before they're going to buy. or the 4-7-11 model, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's not true. There are some people right now that they absolutely positively need and want to buy right now. And that is my story right there. That in this book called The Perfect Sales Storm, I found myself in that situation. I lucked into a massive sale by being at the right place at the right time with the right message. But I was totally lucky. But now, if our marketing makes sales superfluous, we make sure that we get those people. We're able to identify them. If they are ready, willing, and able to buy right now, we hand them off to sales. If they're not, we nurture them until they are, and then we hand them off to sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that answer your question? I don't
Yeah,
know if I
it did.
answered your question.
I also wanted to, yeah, no, it answers the question, but I'm also keen to follow up with like, so, like to be good at, to create the content that you create and build the courses and write the books, can you be completely isolated from what marketing is doing in the organization, or do you need 100% alignment? Like, that's what I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. Could you do it in a vacuum without ever speaking to the marketing department?
Well, here's the reality about my background.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with smaller companies where there wasn't such a division between sales and marketing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in larger enterprise organizations, no, you obviously have to interact with them. They obviously have to communicate a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, many times my role was VP of sales and marketing.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I may not be the right guy to give you the best answer on that question. But
but I just think you did answer it, because you just said like you had a combined role a lot of the time, right? So,
many times I did. Many times I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so, and I'm a strong believer that you should have someone kind of owning those two things, right? And so I selfishly was keen to ask that question for my own benefit. So, but you have a lot of like, you yourself as an individual have a profile, right? You yourself, someone who is known in certainly the high level ecosystem, right? So there's a lot of value that you've got that you and I we've not personally ever spoken about, kind of trying to bring that to the fore. But like, I mean, there is a lot of content that you have. There's a lot of courses that you already have that is super relevant. I mean, we were talking about a book that you authored back in 2011. All the concepts would still be 100% relevant, right? Would you say that there's something for everyone from Steve, or would you say that like you have to be advanced, or like, who is your audience? Like, is it career salespeople? Is it agencies starting out with no idea? Is it someone who is marketing but not sales led but not marketing led? Where do they fit with you?
Well, I thank you for that question. I appreciate that question. And it really, I'm pausing to think about that.
Yeah.
Because I educate with a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I'm often told that, people will say things to me like, I totally get it. It just makes sense. And so I do try to make complex systems easy.
Right.
In fact, as a software guy, you probably know that, right? I mean, our job is to make it as easy as it can be for the user. It's complicated as hell behind the curtain, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot going on back there. So I do try to make it, because I'm passionate about helping small to mid-sized companies.
Okay.
And I love them. I mean, I'm very entrepreneurial. You're very entrepreneurial. And I want to level the play. I just want to level the playing field for them. I want to let them know there are things available right now. You're walking past low-hanging fruit every single day that I want to help you bring in.
Yeah.
And to do that, I have to understand that these are concepts that may be new to folks. They may not be able to see them as easily, as readily, because I've been around this stuff a long time.
Yeah.
so I try to illustrate it in with stories. I try to illustrate it in as easy as I can. I do think there's very simple things that I'm a big believer in the 80%, the 80-20 rule. Okay.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there's a small number of things that can make a big impact on every business.
Yeah.
And that's why we talk a lot about what I call a win back campaign. These days, everybody knows them
Yeah.
in our community as database reactivation.
That's right. Yeah.
I've done them a long time, long before there was a GHL. I was doing database reactivations. I've called mine sales CPR is what I've called mine in the past.
Oh yeah.
Bringing your dead sales back to life, right?
Yeah.
And some of the best successes I ever have with my clients, I always start with that. And I think most businesses are doing that. I hear so many businesses say, I just need new customers. I need new customers. I'm like, but are the ones you already have buying as much as they can from you? Because
Right.
it's a much easier and faster sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%.
go there first.
Yeah. I find that like the reactivation, I speak to a bunch of agencies like every week, right? Because of my role in our company and stuff like that. And the reactivation, I think, like it's so simple that I think people feel that it's like the concept is simple, right? Both to whoever you're potentially selling it to and also the agency owner themselves. And I feel like that there's almost a stigma around it, right? Because I know like people like Rob Bailey or whatever, like they sort of, kind of like the the person that kind of is really great at it or whatever. But my it's not really a question for you, but it's almost just like an observation that I don't know, just trying to share it with you, right? It's like the database reactivation is so simple in terms of its being a concept, right? That it loses its sex appeal or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they want to show the shiny things and the AI and blah, 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 right? But what's interesting about all of that stuff is, right, like a database reactivation can impact your bottom line revenue in like the quickest amount of time, like literally can impact bottom line revenue, right? And move the needle for a business owner. But there's no AI involved. Or there could be, but like you don't necessarily, it's literally like go and talk to all those like buried leads or whatever in your database and see what's what. What do you think about that? Like, do you feel like that? I mean, I'm talking to a guy that's written a book on following up and or whatever. So I don't want to say that it's not sexy. I'm just saying that. Do you feel that there's like it's so simple that people are like they're missing the opportunity to get it in because it's not a next cutting edge hype cycle-y type thing?
Well, yeah, the answer is absolutely. And I think people are missing the boat. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
you said it. Okay. I mean, right now, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's talking about bots. Okay. I mean, everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And look, full transparency. I sold a bot the other day for
Right.
$5,000 and another one for $3,000. So I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I will tell you that those people also are doing reactivation campaigns, and they did reactivation campagns
Yeah.
before the bot. In fact, the reactivation campaign paid for the bot. So there.
Right. Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah. And I can relate. Like, what's interesting is like when you go like from, I had career kind of sales roles, and you go from that to running your own sort of thing, and then like now my role is, as I say, like I'm kind of the chief sales guy, right? But also have this responsibility over a broader business. I've now managed to get to a point this year, right, where I start to speak to people like yourself who are highly skilled in a particular discipline, and we'll have a chat, and I'll be like, can you like give me some advice on this, this, and this? Because I've been so focused on keeping the lights on and just, that building from 0 to 1, right? That now I need someone with a fresh pair of eyes. And like I've become who I used to sell to, right? Which is really interesting, right? To kind of switch roles, right? Where it's like, I know that I'm missing everything. I know that my company Growthable is not achieving the revenue milestones that it should be or that it's capable of. right? And that like I could use help, right? And I think like it's funny now because like I think it's like doesn't matter how much skill you have or whatever. If you get busy running your business, you're just gonna miss things, right? You can't be everyone and everything, right? And so it's nice to be able to kind of step back and go, I don't need to have all the answers. Like I'm gonna let someone give me some advice and I'm going to follow that advice. I'm going to go and implement these things that I've learned and go and make an impact in my own business. Right. So it's interesting that I feel like I want to take some of the courses that you've written because I even just start to get exposed to some of them. I'm like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Right. But it's not without stepping back first and realizing and being self-aware that, oh, I'm a busy business owner, right? That I need it. Right. So I don't know. That's not really like again, it's not really a question. It's more just like an observation, right? So,
But it's a cool observation. And,
but
and, and
the
it's,
reason I say it is because all the agency owners that I speak to on a daily basis, they're in the same category as me. I know they are.
well, yeah, but yes, but I know some really, really successful agencies
Sure. Yeah.
that, you know, I was having a conversation with somebody just today about that. And again, the concept of exiting,
Yeah. Right.
the number one thing, and I think we even mentioned on this call that, for people that are thinking about building a company they can exit, the number one thing they have to be able to do is, leave the company. The company has to survive without them. And so to that point, you have to be able to have people mastering the other things about it. And so for me, I've always focused on follow-up. I'll tell you one thing that I've always had trouble with is everybody always says you have to specialize in a niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or niche, right? I
Yeah.
love when people tell me the word is niche and then they say the riches are in the niches. I say, well, okay, that doesn't make sense. All right. But anyways, so niche or niche, but the riches are the rich. Okay. And it's always bothered me because I
Yeah.
have literally helped every type of business has ever come to me. I've been able to help them because
Yeah.
follow-up is follow-up. And you've got past customers that want to come back and buy from you again. And it doesn't matter if you're selling hamburgers or diamond rings or power boats. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Right.
It works. So I've never focused on a niche. And you listen to any marketing guru expert in the world, the number one thing they'll tell you is focus on a niche.
Yeah.
And then Mike Cooch, who I think is brilliant. Do you know Mike?
I've spoken to him once. Yes. So I know him. Yeah.
Brilliant guy. Mike's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
Really, really, really smart guy. And I heard him say once, and it's like he gave me an aha moment. And he said, you need to specialize, but your specialize can either be in a niche or it could be in a type of business. Basically what he was saying was, I'm okay to specialize in just follow-up.
Yeah. Right.
And so in other words, if somebody thinks I'm a marketing agency, well, I'm not going to do your SEO for you. I'm not going to do your paid ads for you. I'm not going to help you with your branding. I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
I put a follow-up process in place so that you maximize revenue per customer. That's what I do. That's my specialty, and that's why I can apply it to any business. So I think that kind of highlights a point that you were making just a minute ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done 10 times better than I could try to get round to the point, right? So
well, thank Mike Cooch for that.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I think I spoke to him once.
Good guy.
This is probably a year ago now, maybe even longer than a year ago now. But yes, I think there's vertical specialization and there's horizontal, sort of specialization or whatever. Whoever said riches and niches, I mean, one of my friends, Sam Carlson, who owns a company called Upex, he probably know.
Upex, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, his accent, I think, just says riches and niches, but what he's referring to is media buying specifically. He's not talking about, yeah. So he gets away with it, and he's the only person that I kind of let him get away with it. But as agencies owners, like, like just like with you, right? Like, so I get to spend time with people like literally, you know, on, at 9 o'clock this morning, I was speaking to someone who's dealing with hypnotists, right? And then at 10 o'clock, we're dealing with what's the interesting one that we were dealing with this morning? They help martial arts gyms, right? And the next one
Beautiful.
was the next one was actually, we're just helping my wife launch her agency, and she's a birth doula, so she goes and helps women deliver babies, not as a qualified whatever. So she's got an agency helping that, right? And it's like these are all vertically integrated, businesses, right? And they focus on that vertical, right? But like the service layer, that like what those agencies could in fact do, right, is some of the pieces within what they do, it doesn't need to be just for this industry vertical. Like follow up is follow up and it's vertical agnostic, right? Like because you've got a list of people that you're doing business with and you follow up with them. That's vertical agnostic, right? And then all they do is they take it the extra step sort of further and go, well, in this industry vertical or niche, right? This is the kind of language that we use. This is the procurement process typically. So this is, da 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 da, and then of course, like, so then it's like you've added subject matter expertise and specialization to arrive at a niche because it suits your vision for market position in a saturated marketplace, right? But I feel like it's not something that you sit down and plan as far as I'm concerned, right? It's like I don't think you should sit down and say, I want to only, like, actually, there was an interesting one this morning. An agency that only worked with beauty spas that sold a particular type of machine, pretty specialized, right? The reason that they only did that was because they have a relationship with the supplier of the machine. So the supplier goes to the beauty spa, sells the machine, and goes, here's an agency that will sell you tons of appointments to make a return on the investment. You just spent 10 grand on that
Beautiful.
UV machine or whatever. I thought that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm
Yeah,
rambling.
no,
But
that's a great alignment.
yeah.
It does make sense for many agencies to be niche oriented.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
you're right. You're either going to get there because something in your background, something in your passion, that this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
In my case, my very first client, well, I told you my first client was 3M, but after that, was a jewelry store. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
And because of my success with the jewelry store, and I just happened to land them as a client, the first thing I did was a reactivation campaign. Somewhere you're going to see a picture of me waving $6,500 in cash. That picture is something I've used many times because that guy paid me $6,500 in cash to run a reactivation campaign for him that generated $40,000 worth of revenue that weekend. All right.
Wow.
So
yeah.
he was thrilled. And he was so thrilled that not only did he give me a testimonial, but he gave me like 5 referrals of
Right.
other jewelry stores.
Yeah.
Right. Now, sometimes the niche just picks you. So sometimes you don't pick the niche just picks you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, I try to bring that sort of wisdom. You're so much more articulate than I am, but like you try to bring that wisdom to agency owners. Like so many agency owners will approach us and say like, we want support, blah 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 blah, and of course we offer those services. So, we start a partnership together. But then they're also saying like, hey, like I'd really like to know your advice on like where we should focus. And I'm like, like unless you are scratching your own itch and you've spent 20 years and working at a dentist office and you came up with some innovative thing that you're like, this has to exist everywhere, not just in this dentist office. It has to exist in all dentist office. Then maybe you don't like dentistry. Maybe you hate it, right? What do you want to do, right? And it's like, well, I don't know. And it's like, okay, cool. We'll go and talk to 20 business owners. And if you knock it out the park with someone, and then they introduce you to 3 other people because they all go to the same meetups and the same networking events and whatever. Chiropractors, no other chiropractors. Dentists, no other dentists, etc., etc. You might end up working for, someone who's a lawnmower franchise for all you know, right? And you might become an domain expertise in lawnmower franchise businesses. You don't know, right? But like allow it to organically happen to you by working with a wide variety of businesses is my advice, basically. I don't know. What would you say if I gave you that advice? Would you say it's bad advice or good advice or somewhere in the middle?
You know, no, I think I think it's great advice. You know, just to be open. If you don't know, you know, if you know, it's if you don't know where you want to focus, I think you're right. You just got to be open to where things could lead you because you never know. I imagine this lady or person that you were speaking to earlier that specialize, you know, working with a manufacturer of particular equipment to beauty salons. She probably didn't go to college for that. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
she probably didn't study that in school. Somehow she just fell into that, right? That's
Yeah.
what happens sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I studied journalism in college. Go figure.
Well, you did write a book, so there you go.
30 years after I
Yeah, right.
graduated, and
Yeah.
it's a small book.
Yeah. But it's like also, like I remember hearing like I listened to a podcast with a comedian. I can't remember who it was, maybe Jimmy Carr or someone like that on the Joe Rogan show or whatever, right? I don't know if I'm admitting to listening to Joe Rogan's a bad thing or
Oh,
not.
yeah,
But
right.
yeah. But there was who was it? Oh, it was Ricky Gervais. Like it was basically saying like, he's glad that he wasn't found until he was like 40 plus, right? Because he'd had the life experience to have material to actually talk about or whatever to make fun of, right? And it's like
Right.
when you go and work in a bunch of different industries throughout your career, like I've worked in legal, supply chain, intellectual property, banking, like whatever, right? And like it just gave me a great kind of foundation to go, I know I don't like all of that. And I know I like that. And so I'm going to go down there, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I told you I love to tell stories, and you're right. You
Yeah,
know, if I didn't have the experience, I couldn't tell the stories.
exactly. Yeah.
And so, you're right. And I loved your Ricky Gervais, example, because just imagine how could he ever do a series like The Office if he never lived it?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, so look, I'm keen to hear about, what's next for you, right? And like what are we going to see coming from you in the next week, the next 3 months, this sort of stuff. What do you got going on?
Well, my big vision, going back to my book,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was always I want to bring simple, easy to use systems and processes to businesses to help them with their sales problems.
Yeah.
Many of them have sales problems they don't need to be having right now. Many of them are having struggles they don't need to be having right now.
Yeah.
And it's you know I just hope Sean Clark's not listening to this, but you know you only need about this much of GHL to really change a business owner's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fantastic software. We all love it, right? We all love it. But don't get so caught up in everything it can do.
Yeah.
Nobody uses all of it. And most people can get so much benefit out of this, whether it's a database reactivation campaign, whether it's something as simple as a missed call text back. Okay.
Yeah.
These things have massive, massive effects on businesses. And hopefully the people that are watching us right now are the people that are influencing those businesses. And here's why that's important to me. I've said many times out in public, I've got a dream, I've got a vision that I'm going to help 10,000 businesses make an extra $1 million. That's $10 billion worth of wealth that I want to create around the world. I can only do that if the people listening to us right now, they're the ones speaking to the businesses. I can't go out and get that message to all the businesses. But if I can get it to 1,000 agencies that could bring it to 10 clients, right?
Yeah.
Or 500 that could bring it to 20 clients, we could all do it together. That's a massive effect that we could have on businesses worldwide. So
what I'm hearing you say is, what I'm hearing is it's I love how you quantify it in terms of giving it a like a figure or a number or something tangible that you can feel, right? And it's a macroeconomic goal, right? Rather than like, I want $1 million. Do you know what I mean? That's awesome too, right? So
Well, I'm pretty sure we're all going to benefit just fine if we can do that. That's $10 billion of wealth we'll create. I'm sure we'll all get our little chunk of it.
of course, yeah. So would you say like that there's I mean, I feel like there's with you, I feel like there's treasure troves of education for, I mean, because of our ecosystem in the agency world, right? That we're yet to see and consume, right? Surely there is. There's got to be something that you are going to be talking about in the future that our agency owners that we all know are going to be able to get their hands on and consume, surely.
Um, the answer is always, all
Yeah.
right, always.
Yeah.
Some
Because you've
things
got like tens of thousands of hours of content, right? Surely. I think you've,
on an
yeah.
unbelievable amount of content.
Right,
My
exactly.
video account, you would not believe my video. Well, even my membership, I've got a paid membership course.
Right, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like drinking like a fire hose if you go in there because you know I do trainings all the time, and my
Yeah.
trainings are typically an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and you go in there and there's a few hundred of those, right? Now you can't sit there and watch it all. You can't. What
Yeah.
I'm loving today with the world of AI is, well, now I'm building bots and training
Right.
it with that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So now if somebody says, how do I do a win back campaign? You won't even have to go watch an hour and a
Yeah.
half worth of videos or whatever. We're getting to that point. Thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
Now, so yes, there's a lot more that you'll hear from me. Some you'll
Awesome.
get tired, because I'll tell you this. In some ways, Ryan, full disclosure, in some ways I'm the most boring person in the world because I've been saying the same thing for 15 years.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right. I mean, follow up is follow up. You'll get sick of hearing that from me because if you hear me talking about the newest, hottest things like bots, the only reason I talk about bots is to talk about how it improves your follow up or how it gets people into your system so you could follow up with them. Specifically, that's what I'm interested in is, the number one thing I've always told my customer, my client, is you have to build your list. It's amazing today how many businesses today still don't have a list, right?
Right.
Or they have it and they just ignore it. So the number one thing that I'm thinking is, well, bots are engaging. Let's make sure we get those bots, because it's always been said that, people bounce off of a website in 1 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If a bot can keep them there now for 30 seconds to 2 minutes, now we got a lot more time to capture their lead. Why? So we can follow up with them.
Yeah.
That's all I want the bot to do. That's all I want the bot to do is capture the lead. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be the Encyclopedia Britannica. For those of you that don't know what the Encyclopedia Britannica is, go ask a bot.
You used to win those on like game shows and things, didn't
And
you?
they used to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Stupid Larry Page and Sergey. What are they doing? Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to come up with because, as I say, like it's timely for me. I mean, I'm starting to kind of know what my limitations are personally, being in my business, and I'm seeking wisdom from others. Right. I'm like, all right, let's time to go outside myself, be self-aware, understand that like, am I achieving what I want to achieve? Am I growing at the rate that I want to grow at? No, is the answer to all those things, right? So, it's great to connect with you, great to catch up with you. I hope to see more of you in and around the traps. I'm sure we will. And I appreciate you jumping me for a chat. So, yeah, if anybody's got a question for Steve, just put it in the comments here. This is the first time I've done Facebook Live via Zoom, by the way. So I'm hoping it worked properly. But yeah, I'm going to tag you and, I'll put in all the, you'll comment, Steve, with all the stuff for your own promo stuff, right? We'll get it all.
Yeah, and feel free to come by, friend me. I'll tell you, I post a lot of stuff on my personal feed. I did some great videos this week of the way I do prospecting that I think a lot of folks will find helpful. So definitely tag me and watch my personal feed because I love the engagement. The more engagement I get, the better I feel about putting stuff out there, right? The more I want to do it.
All right, Steve. Thanks so much. I'm going to stop the live stream now and we're going to obviously catch up after in a second, but thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, everybody, for spending time with us today.
Thanks, Steve.